hilarious West End play This House Was a Glorious Sin-Up of how sick and dying MPs were brought to the Commons to vote when the Labour government had no majority in the late 1970s. And for the first time in many years, the same near-farcical scenes returned to the Commons as Theresa May's government faced a Tory rebellion on the EU withdrawal bill on a so-called meaningful vote on Brexit. The most dramatic image was that of the Labour MP for Bradford West, Naz Shah, being pushed through the Commons chamber in a wheelchair, looking very poorly and clutching a sick bucket after being in hospital for 3 days. The Commons chamber is not wheelchair-friendly, however. Labour MP Naz Shah arrives at Parliament in a wheelchair to vote in this afternoon's grunge debate on Brexit. Sources told Sky News the agreement that means ill MPs get nodded through by being on the estate was suspended for this vote. pic.twitter.com/9vlogged. Sky News Politics, at Sky News Politics, June 20, 2018. Hers was too wide to get past the speaker's chair and clerk's table, and she had to back up and use another door to get to the voting lobby to cast her vote against the government. Veteran Labour MP Paul Flynn, who's 83 and for some time has been using a mobility scooter to get around Parliament, has been seriously ill and was not expected to vote, but defied expectations and did so. 3 MPs who are heavily pregnant, the Lib Dem Deputy Leader Jo Swinson and Labour's Cat Smith and Laura Pidcock, came in to vote. Labour's Holly Lynch is also pregnant. Ms. Swinson voted despite her baby already being overdue. After the vote, Ms. Swinson tweeted, "My thanks to MPs from across different parties in the House of Commons for their goodwill and best wishes as I voted, at 40 weeks pregnant, in today's close division on giving Parliament a meaningful vote on Brexit. Government major 16 votes, sadly my side lost, however. 1/3, Jo Swinson, at Jo Swinson, June 20, 2018. This is no way to run a parliament in a modern democracy. Deciding matters of state, or which parts of the country will have their voices heard, should not be determined by which MPs can be discharged from hospital or happen to be in childbirth. We need proxy voting." 2/3, Jo Swinson, at Jo Swinson, June 20, 2018. This all happened because the government, fearing a defeat that would have plunged Mrs. May's premiership into a serious crisis, suspended pairing, the arrangement between the parties to accommodate sick MPs and those away on parliamentary business. The government also took exceptional measures to maximize its own vote. Sky News was told of plans to delay the 90-minute debate on the Lords' amendments by an hour to allow a Tory MP to undergo an important medical procedure before dashing back to vote. The plan was to make a government statement, taking up about an hour. Home Secretary Sajid Javid was lined up to announce the crackdown on knife crime, but the Gosport Hospital deaths report meant it was Health Secretary Jeremy Hunt who stepped in with the statement. Image: former Attorney General Dominic Grieve backed down at the last minute. Conservative MPs were very surprised to see Paul Flynn turn up to vote. He hadn't been seen around the Commons for some time and Tory whips assumed he was too ill to vote. Labour's numbers were also boosted by the new MP for Lewisham East, Janet Dobby, elected in a by-election last week. As it turned out, the government won fairly comfortably by 16 votes, after a behind-the-scenes deal with the leader of the Tory rebels, Dominic Grieve, meant how but the most die-hard pro-Remain mutineers backed down and voted with the government. There were just 6 Tory rebels: Heidi Allen, South Cambridgeshire, Ken Clarke, Rushcliffe, Philip Lee, Bracknell, who quit as a minister last week, Antoinette Sandbach, Edisbury, Anna Soubry, Broxtowe, and Sarah Wollaston, Totnes. There were only 4 Labour rebels, despite earlier claims by Labour Brexiteers that there may be as many as 15. There were the usual suspects: Frank Field, Birkenhead, Kate Hoey, Vauxhall, John Mann, Bassett Law, and Graham Stringer, Blackley and Broughton. Image: today's events in the Commons will be a boost for Theresa May now it's all over. There are a few more bizarre elements of the soap opera that has been the EU withdrawal bill. First, It ended with Mr. Grieve voting against his own amendment. Second, what about the sacrifice of Dr. Lee? He quit the government last week over its handling of Brexit, but when the amendment was put to a vote he decided to abstain. Today, he voted against the government, but found himself on the losing side. So he has lost his government job and lost his fight in Parliament on Brexit. A comedy of errors, this House, the James Graham play about the battles between the rival whips offices, was a massive hit in the West End, and its latest run coincided with Mrs. May losing her majority in the Commons last year. It was based on real events. Who would have predicted, 40 years ago, that 4 decades later MPs would still be being dragged from hospital to vote and pushed around the Commons in a wheelchair clutching a sick bucket? Answer: most MPs, probably. Someone should write a play about Brexit. No doubt someone will.